It can be tempting for people who are new to coding to jump right into a paid boot camp or maybe even a university program. But really, I recommend a few different things for people who are brand new to coding. So let's get right into tip one, which is to utilize all the free resources you can to learn whether programming is actually right for you and to learn about what specific direction you want to head towards on your further coding journey. So I recommend so many free resources like Free Code Camp, CS50, which is Harvard's free online course. Great course. I have a playlist all about it. But really, I think there's so many ways to learn how to code for free that don't require doing a boot camp or anything. The attraction of doing a boot camp or a degree even is that you have a credential that you can show employers like, hey, like I really understand this. I'm passionate. I've worked hard for this credential, which is great. But I think even before investing any money, it's nice to understand whether programming is actually right for you. I got this advice one time that hey, Daniel, like if you're learning coding and you're learning conditionals and for loops and you're thinking, okay, when am I going to get to the interesting stuff? Then programming is probably not for you because no matter what level you're going to be at, some of those fundamentals are going to be there no matter what. So that's something worth keeping in mind. And like I said, there's so many free resources and super cheap resources too. Like you can find coding books at Goodwill or your local thrift store for probably like 50 cents. But for free, like YouTube, Google, you can even jump right into a IDE, an integrated development environment, and just start coding. And as things come up, you can totally just Google the question, which brings me to tip number two, which is to not just watch tutorials. Tutorials are fantastic, especially starting out, but code alongside the tutorials. Even if you watch 1,000 hours of tutorials, that's great, but how strong of a coder are you really going to be just through the videos? It's probably not super high as opposed to someone who maybe watches very few videos, but just codes a lot and gets the reps in for getting that practice with the keyboard and the feel of the different languages. So coding alongside tutorials is great, and really getting the practice, getting the reps in is like probably number one tip really, because that'll just make you so much stronger of someone who understands what they're doing when they're trying to create a cool program. So getting the practice in, super great. Tip number three is to don't worry so much about memorizing the syntax, but definitely keep in mind and try to do your best to understand the concepts of what's really happening in your code. So you can always Google syntax later, but some things that are a little bit harder to Google are concepts that you don't really understand. Like, for example, let's say that you know you need to do the same thing a set number of times with slight variations. Well, then if you understand the fundamentals, you'll know that you can use a for loop. And regardless of what language you're using, the for loops are going to be structured pretty similarly. So then you can go to Google and say, hey, Google, what's the syntax for creating a for loop in Java using this conditional or something? That's totally cool. But if you didn't even know what for loop was, it could be tough to get past that step. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Understanding the concepts is going to be universal to any language. Like there's so many different ways to set up like a variable in terms of syntax, depending on C, Python, Java, but the variable is going to be the same concept no matter what language you're using. Maybe some slight archaic modifications based on like the actual structure of the programming language, but really for all intents and purposes, it's going to be virtually the same. So understanding those concepts, what a variable is, what a pointer is, what a conditional is, that's all going to be super great for all of your coding journey. So those are three quick tips. Hope this was helpful in some way, and thanks for watching.